Giju questioned Lu, "What are you talking about?" And Lu replied that what he means is, never mind, just forget it. And as Giju tried to question him again, a sudden call drew his attention. As he turned to look, Elle came to tell him that her power has been all used up, and it'll be difficult for her to continue using her evolved state. As he told her good work, she reverted back into her ring form. And as the evolved status dissolved, the three angels and the after-image of Elle's sword form appeared in her place. Elle told her master to forgive her for not being of much help, but Giju told her she had been of great help. Then he opened the gate, and told the other angels to go into it to rest as well. They thanked their liege, then they left the battlefield. Suddenly he caught some swirling movement from the gigantic cocoon, as something suddenly approached him, and Lu shouted a warning to him that it's coming. He brought up his sword just in time to block the attack, as a spike from the cocoon reached him. He was shocked, and couldn't believe that the spike was so tough that his block barely left a scratch on its surface. His hands were still shaking from the impact, when he noticed more swirls forming on the cocoon's surface. Multiple spikes launched from the cocoon's surface, and they impaled some of the flying griffins nearby, and also indiscriminately struck the flying mantis as well. Giju noticed that it's just attacking randomly, regardless of whether an enemy or friend. He asked Hart if he was okay, and the lich replied that he was fine, for now. And since they are undead, as long as he was there, their numbers of soldier would never decrease. Lu called him a braggart, since that's only possible because of the massive amount of demonic energy in the area, but warned that he's still at his limit just enduring at the moment. Then told Giju that this situation wasn't really optimistic, and Giju agreed, saying that they don't have much time. Since the thorns couldn't reach too high in the sky, the griffins kept their distance. And except for the few that got attacked suddenly at the start, most of the flying griffins shouldn't have any problems. However, for the subjugation team, as he turned his head to look, he was shocked at what he saw. They were surrounded by a golden bubble that prevented them from getting hit by the spikes. It was a protective barrier created by Michael called Saint Area. Lu remarked that it's some crazy amount of mana that was being used, and said that he might even be on par with his master. At that moment, another spike formed and shot out directly at Giju, almost catching him off guard, but he was quickly able to fly around the spike and avoid getting hit by it. As he flew towards the cocoon, he unleashed his death skill, and landed with a strike, sending waves of death from his initial hit. Unfortunately, due to the sheer size of the enemy, it was only able to make a small hole on the surface. Then recalling something, he asked Lu about what he said earlier, about something happening if this thing explodes. Lu answered that first, this entire area will be completely destroyed, and then an even bigger and stronger boss will be awakened. And once all the people inside the gate are dead, a break will occur, letting Vothus appear in the middle of the city. Giju angrily said that this was crazy, while imbued more of his death power into his sword. Then as blood started to ooze out of the orifices on his face, he was suddenly overcome with pain. As he started to lose his consciousness, Lu shouted, "Fuck, the balance shifted too much on this side, and he can really die if he keeps using death." As swirls started to form under his feet, the cocoon-launched move spiked at his, which he miraculously dodged. In his hazy state, he thought his vision was starting to get blurry, but did he just get attacked? If he couldn't use death anymore, then he needed to find another method, but what? This is a cocoon that withstood death that was strengthened, so there's no way a regular skill would be able to damage it. Even Elle, who possesses divine power, was out of energy, and he was sure that Michael would be reaching his limit soon. To make the situation even worse, there are still 2 enemy commanders remaining. His body started to fall lifeless, and soon the spikes were about to strike him. As his consciousness faded, he recalled that once the people inside the gate all die, a break would occur, letting Vothus appear in the middle of the city. He saw the image of his beloved sister and mother, which jolted him back into awareness, and he quickly opened his eyes. Then recalled Lu's words, that if found himself in an unlikely situation, that there comes a time when he believed that there's no chance of winning, to use him to strike deep into his stomach. Seeing what Giju was about to do, Lu in a panic shouted to his mater to wait, while Ellen Brunhart also cried for him to stop. But in that moment, Giju stabbed himself in the stomach with the black sword, while the spikes were about to reach him. Then a system notification appeared, and informed him that his link with his ego Lu has expanded. Then said that something unknown has descended. Meanwhile, Michael's protective barriers on the subjugation team members were starting to show cracks under the pressure from the continued attack by the cocoon spikes. As the cracks appeared on multiple barriers, it was only a matter of time before they collapsed. Michael was struggling to hold on, as he remarked that his mana was being used up way too fast. He thought that if this goes on, but suddenly he felt an attack coming from behind him. As he turned to look, the two remaining enemy commanders were attacking him. Michael could only lament, damn it, he noticed them too late and he couldn't dodge or block them right now. But suddenly the whole battlefield was filled with a powerful aura. The two enemy commanders halted their attack as they felt the tremendous pressure. They quickly fled away, which surprised Michael. As he was wondering what in the world just happened, he turned to look at the fleeing figures and saw that they were scared. But in the next moment they were vaporized into nothing and disappeared, causing everyone who was looking to be dumbfounded, wondering what just happened. As an outstretched hand with lingering power of death was pointed in that direction, we see it was Giju what is perched on top of a spike. In a voice different from usual self, he said that how dare a weakling who hasn't even sat on the throne dare to appear before him without his consent. Even the Lich, witnessing this scene of his master, was speechless. An outline of a demonic horn appeared on his head, as Lu and Giju's body said, "Now then, kneel and bow your head." As he stood atop the spike, majestically opening his arms as half a demonic wing was shown on his back, and continued to say that the King of Hell has returned. Michael looking at Giju, and said what in the world is with his appearance and this overwhelming power. While Chanyong was shaking from fear as he looked at Giju, thinking to himself what the hell is with that energy, he couldn't even move. With a panic, he saw dark energy that started to move around him. Even Yubin and Sunghun noticed the energy in this space was all gathering into one area near Giju. The Lich was shaking and noticed that his demonic energy was being absorbed away. Even the demonic combatants on the battlefield lost their energy, while the undead on the started to collapse from the loss. Do-hyun let out a nervous laugh, saying as expected from Rancor Kim Giju. But Tao Chen noticed something was off, since he could tell that Morningstar wasn't the one doing this. Because he can see that the energy is being absorbing by the cocoon, it was taking all of the energy within this space. Once it absorbed enough energy, the cocoon started to explode, shattering all the protective barriers surround the other players, and sending them flying backwards by the force of the explosion. In a cloud of dust, the players were all flung backwards, to clash on the side of the cliff. As the dust started to settle, the players started to cough and pick themselves off the ground. Tao Chen slowly got back on his feet, and started to ask if everyone was okay. Then, wondering what happened this time, he looked towards the battlefield and was shocked at what he saw. Towering over the whole battlefield, stood a gigantic demonic mantis that was even bigger than the commanders. He thought to himself that this couldn't be happening. And the problem isn't whether they'll win or lose now. Since most of subjugation team members were throwing up because of the nauseating energy of this boss's presence alone. And most likely they will lose consciousness after 5 minutes at best. And if Morningstar and that thing fights, everything here will die for sure. Even Sir Michael took a hit after his shield broke, and even he wasn't sure if he would be able to survive this. Closing his eyes, he resigned himself and thought that this place will likely be his grave. But since the worst case scenario where that has been released, has been stopped, he guessed that his death was not in vain. The boss started to move its arm, and was posed to make a strike at Giju. It brought its arm down in a powerful strike, and just the pressure from its strike forced all the other players to collapse onto the ground. Chanyong was struggling to maintain his composure, but just the pressure alone was enough to put him down to his knees. As the strike was about to reach Giju, he wondered if this was all there is, then told Vothus that he has lost a lot of his senses. With a simple snap of his fingers, he vaporized the area in front of him, completely destroying the upper body of the boss. Both Tao Chen and Chanyong stared at this with extreme shock. Tao Chen wondered, just what in the world just happened? What did Morningstar just do? He was sure that the demon boss had attacked him, and all he did was close his eyes for a second due to the wind pressure. But in the split second that his eyes were closed, half of that colossal body just disappeared. Giju was floating in the air above the body of Vothus. He still had the black sword stabbing through his stomach, and half his body was covered in a dark aura. With a sinister smile, he told Vothus that it looks like he was able to use his head. Then gathering the darkness which swirling around him, he shot like a comet directly towards the colossal body. Landing on the top of it, he was holding the head of a smaller version of the demon in his hands. With a devilish grin, he asked did he really think he could hide himself, while trying to distract his attention with that massive attack, Vothus. A panic-stricken Vothus was sweating buckets, while Gidju's hand gripped his head. As Gidju slowly squeezed his hands, cracks started to form on Vothus' face. Then Vothus in a panic quickly stated that he never heard about him being here, claiming he was tricked as well. And he was willing to tell him what happened, he would tell him everything. But Gidju replied that he didn't need to, since there are different ways to learn it. In a panic, Vothus asked what? Gidju said that well, it won't really fill him up when he's in such a small state, but it doesn't really matter. This one statement completely shocked Vothus to the core. In a panic, it said to wait and please spare his life, don't kill him, Lucifer. But Gidju cut him off saying in a demonic voice to shut up, since that's a name he has already forgotten, as he turned completely demonic, and opened his mouth for a bite. He activated cannibalism, and the system notification informed him that he has successfully transformed Vothus into an ego, also he has won the territory battle against Vothus. After getting back up, he wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and started to look around. Then wondered out loud, what did he come here to look for? The other players were standing outside the open cocoon, as Tao Chen asked Changyong, what did he think is going on in there? Then suddenly a figure leaped up in front of them, and the demonified figure of Gidju was standing in front of them, holding an unconscious Siku. Then he suddenly drops the unconscious body on the ground, and Do Hyung recognizes the body as his guildmaster. As the undead army approached, they knelt down on the ground and offered their greeting to the junior master. As Gidju looked over, he completely disintegrated the head of the lich. And as he walked over he commented Junior Master, huh, as the lich's face was regenerating back. He grabbed the lich by the collar, and said that he was quite impertinent for a lich, just because his life vessel was inside the gate, doesn't mean he couldn't kill him. But the lich didn't back down and said that it seems that he has already overtook his consciousness, but please return his liege's body. As Lu and Gidju's body angrily started to say you arrogant, El and Rain both materialized their physical bodies. And as the gate opened, the three angels stepped out as well. El pointing her weapon towards Lu and said, give back her master's body, while Rain growled at him. The angels also demanded that he return their master's body, and Brunhard told Lu to get his act together. Then Lu, who was possessing Gidju's body, grabbed his face saying, was that it? So that was it, and peeking from between his fingers stated how annoying. As he unleashed his powerful force, striking those around him, which sent them flying backwards. It completely knocked the wind out of those around him, El, the undead, the angels, and even Rain. As the others fell to the ground around him, he looked at his hands and remarked, what's happening to me, why did he go easy on them, to those who bear hostility towards him? As the others struggled to get to their feet, he kept asking himself, why were they still alive? They should have been in his stomach by now. As he stared at his hands, he asked himself puzzled, wondering just who was he. As the darkness that covered half his body started to fade away, the black sword started to transform back into a ring on his hand as Gidju's body fell onto the ground. El was the first to react, calling out to her master. But someone from behind her said, they should kill him now. As El turned to look at the person who spoke, it was Changyong saying, didn't they just see what just happened, that guy isn't human, they need to kill him while they still can. El was silent for a moment, then she slowly turned to look directly at him with eyes filled with rage. Subscribe to the channel for the next part. Thank you for watching, until next time.